Hello, welcome to Curiosity, Creativity and Beyond. Today we're going to draw this amazingly huge bush cricket, also known as katydid. It is very big, is very long. If I measure from the head until the very end, it's almost 7.5 centimeters long. That is huge. And it looks like a grasshopper, doesn't it? But it isn't a grasshopper. And you can tell the difference because grasshoppers have very short and thick antennae, whereas bush crickets, katydids, have these very long and thin antennae. So that is what's telling us that this is a bush cricket. Look how long the body is. And these two structures on each side, they're folded wings and they look like leaves. This insect is very much an expert in something called camouflage, which means that it can hide and is going to mimic all the leaves around it so it cannot be seen. Because imagine how yummy this would be for a predator. Like wasps, ants, frogs, mantis. So yeah, he better hide. So let's draw it, shall we? So I'm going to use a non-photo blue pencil to start sketching, or light blue, graphite 2B pencil, an eraser, a sharpener, and the ruler. I like to start with a non-photo blue pencil because then I can make adjustments and corrections, and it's kind of like a magic pencil. At the end, once we go with the graphite and the colors, really no one can see it. So the first thing I want to make sure is that I can fit everything. I know I can bend a little bit the antennae, so I don't have to leave a big massive space there, but I want to make sure I can include the whole body. It's very long, so I'm going to make sure at least it ends here and the head here. And I'm going to start with an oval shape. I always like starting with very simple shapes. So I see that from the tip of the head until the end of the abdomen, it's almost like an oval. So that's what I'm going to do here. Maybe I can end a little bit shorter. And an oval is like a circle that we stretch. After I have done the oval, I notice that the head is this part here. It's kind of interesting. It's I would say it has like a triangular shape. And how long and how tall is it? I think at least it's gonna be up to here. I noticed that it's a little bit flat and wide at the very end, and then it opens up on each side. It's like a very stylish, instead of a triangle, I would say it's like very stylish square. So that's going to be the head. And then I noticed there's another triangle here. So I want to make sure that I include that in my drawing. And then these two structures, and these are wings, and this wing is very long and very thin and is on top of this one. And they both open at the end, and we can see a little bit of the abdomen right there. So for this reason, it might be easier if actually I just make the abdomen like very thin. I cannot see what's underneath, and because it's a specimen, I cannot just go and open the wings. That would destroy the specimen. But now that I have the end of the body, then I can go and draw a very simplified version of this wing on one end, and then the other one we can see a little bit more of the side of the wing. And that doesn't mean that this is different, it's just the way, the perspective. And one thing I need to make sure is I don't make these too thick, because I can see they're almost like parallel lines here. That's why I like using the non-photo blue pencil, because I can make all these different lines and I don't have to worry about anything really. Look at the end, I have, it's like it had another, yeah, it looks like another pair of wings, but they're all folded. So I'm just gonna make sure that I draw that like that. And guess what? As every insect, it has 3 legs on each side, and they all come from the thorax. So those are parts that I really want to mention, because this is important. This is the head, the thorax is underneath, and the wings come from it, and also the legs. So wings and legs come all from the thorax. And then the last piece is the abdomen. And because it's covered by the wings, we cannot see it. But those are the main 3 parts of this katydid. And I'm going to draw the legs, and look at these very short legs compared to this very long one at the back. We can see this one a little bit better because of the perspective. I really love drawing insect legs, so I think I'm gonna draw this side, and if I have time I'll draw this side. And they're also oriented differently. Like if I put my pencil, I can see that this leg on the front is that way, this one in the middle is that way, and in the back is that way. So it almost looks like some legs are oriented that way and some legs are oriented that way. So let's try. They all come from the thorax, although it might seem that they come from the head, but no. And they have different parts and pieces that we are going to name. So that would be the front one. Let's do both. The front ones, and then the middle ones. They're quite symmetrical, even in the specimen. And then the last one, and the last one is so interesting. So it starts here and is very, very long. And because of perspective, I can see, let's see if I can do this a little bit better so you can see it. If I put the pencil on top, it's oriented that way. So I bring it here. Oh, I was so off. I was very off. Let's try again. I put my pencil here. I bring it to my drawing, and that's why it's so useful. Look how off I was. Now I know what's the right angle of this leg. So this is interesting. It's like a trick. And it's much thicker right there and at the beginning. So I will add a little bit of detail with graphite, and then I'm going to do the exact same thing with the other piece of the leg. Is that way. So I'm just going to bring it to my page and make sure that is that way. And then I see the tiny piece over there. For the other one, I think I'm going to do the exact same thing, although because of the way that we're seeing it from perspective, it looks a little bit shorter. But I am going to copy exactly like this side. Because I know the legs are exactly the same in both sides. Last thing before I go into detail, I'm gonna make sure that I draw the very long and thin antenna that are actually the most important key thing. So we know that this is not a grasshopper, this is a bush cricket. So I'm going to write that down because that's super interesting. So they have long and thin antenna. So a grasshopper would had very short and thick antennae. So now I know how to distinguish them when I see them, and I can say good morning bush cricket rather than good morning grasshopper. So I'm going to switch to my graphite now, and I'm going to start adding detail because I can see so many interesting things. I see the two eyes here, and I see a structure right in between and where the antennae are coming from. I see them there. And then I see like this ridge has very interesting, like little tiny mountains, very tiny, but very irregular. So I'm just gonna draw what I see. And I wonder if this is for the fence, all these ridges and pieces. And then the head ends with this curvy line here. Then I see a line dividing the triangle there. And then the triangle that I mentioned before with this wing overlapping this other wing. And overlap just means that one is on top of the other. In this case, like this. So because this wing is on top, I am going to see it all, and I will not see the end of the wing on this end. And then when it comes to here, it has very curvy lines. Yeah, it ends in a tiny nice curve. It's really pretty. It's very pretty. I can actually see a little bit of the wing, of the inside of the wing. So to do that, I'm gonna curve the pencil like this. Yeah, I can see a little bit of the inside of the wing. It's very flat. It's a flat wing. And on this end, the wing comes from here. And I see it has a little bit of a curve here, maybe because of the body. And then it becomes the wing like this. On this side, I see much more of the wing. Wing goes underneath. If I could have x-ray vision, I would see the wing underneath, or if the wings were transparent, but these are not. There's other insects that have transparent wings, but not this case. And then I have the end of the wing ends around the same level as this one, and instead of seeing underneath, I see much more of the surface here. And it has so much detail. It looks like veins of a leaf, and that's something that we mentioned before, and I will write it here. Camouflage. And what that means is that they are experts. Experts are hiding. They are nocturnal too. So I'm going to add a little bit of the detail on the legs, and all the legs come again from the thorax. And I think this gets a little bit thicker there, and I can see The next leg, it's very well preserved. The last piece here, and it ends in two structures that are called tarsal claws. So this piece here, that is going to be the femur. This piece here is the tibia. And then the last piece is the foot or tarsus. And those tiny claws are called tarsal claws. So yeah, the same applies here. I think I'm going to draw them all. Yeah. This is a little bit thicker here. And then the tibia, if we were to see this from profile view, which is, I'm going to post photos so you can see how these legs are bent. You would see also up close all the tiny structures that I'm mentioning. So make sure that you go into the full project so you can see all the close-up photos. Then the next legs, I think I'm going to start with the back legs because they overlap the middle legs. So I'm going to start, I think they make, they allow the bush crickets to jump very high. So that's why the back legs are so long. They work like springs. When this cricket is ready to jump, both legs extend and jump super high and far. Because otherwise it's going to end becoming dinner. So there is a piece here that is a little bit thicker. I'm looking there. And then the very nice curve here. And then the top thin a little bit here, much thinner than the one I drew. And then I'm gonna end a little bit separated from here. So that's something that you can do when drawing from a specimen, is you can also, for clarity, instead of drawing the structure super close, you can separate it a little bit. And we're not breaking the anatomy, but we just want to see it clearly. So that's our first jumping leg. I'm going to draw the other jumping leg here, and I'm just going to draw what I did here, because of perspective, is very shortened. And what I mean by this is like this leg is exactly the same length as this. Imagine this pencil. But because, okay, let's compare these two pencils. They're the same length, right? But what happens if I tilt this pencil suddenly? Oh, suddenly it looks shorter. What? That's perspective. It was the exact same length, but because I tilted it, it looks much shorter. And that's what's happening here. So I am going to copy exactly this leg, and I will have approximately here, I will have my bush crickets with very symmetrical looking legs. And the parts that we saw before also apply to these long legs. So this first segment is the femur. The next segment that inserts there, that's the tibia. And then the last piece is formed by tiny segments, triangles, that end in the tarsal claws. That's the foot. Let me move this label away, because otherwise it looks like the head and the leg are the same thing. So these are the three main parts of the body of the cricket. So the only two legs that are left are the middle ones, and they're kind of in the, yeah, they're a little bit longer than the front ones. And I like how these are facing forward and these are facing backwards. That's interesting. So these are femur, and then that's why I decided to draw this one first, because then I don't have to use my eraser. I just can go and stop drawing right there to draw the tibia. And it's a little bit thinner at the end, and then the foot made of tiny triangles that end in the tarsal claws. I'm gonna do the exact same thing here. That's the femur. And if you look up closer in the photos that I'm gonna take, you will see how the tibia totally inserts there in the femur. It's very cool. And that's a joint. This thing, I'm gonna circle it. That's a joint or an articulation. And it's like your knee or your elbow or your wrist. Those are called joints too. So now we have a lot of things in common with the bush cricket. And the last thing I want to do, let's see these two wings here. I cannot forget these. It's beautiful. This wing is on top, and then this other wing is at the bottom. And our antenna, but you see, because they're so thin and they have this very nice color, I think I'm going to draw them directly with color. But one thing I really need to write down interesting things about the katydid. I'm just going to write down that this is an insect and it's the order Orthoptera. And Orthoptera means that it has straight wings. Look at this, totally straight wings. I think I'm gonna start with a very light orange overall. And I've been reading so many cool things about the katydid. I have read that they only live up to a year. I'm gonna write that down. They live the short life, very short life of 1 year. And they're usually green. So we are very lucky that we have this one that is kind of like yellow, pale color. And also, there's something really cool, and it's the way they sound. Do you want to hear how they sound? I have it all ready. Are you ready? So that's how a katydid sounds like, and that's why they call it katydid. Some people hear katydid, katydid, katydid. There's also very interesting, they have something on the forelegs right here, right there. They have a structure called tympana. And that's what allows them to hear. That's where they have their ears. I'm going to draw an ear. So that's what allows them to hear, one on each side. But to make the sound that we hear, which is called stridulation, they produce that sound by moving the wings against each other. And that's a very cool word. So I'm just going to add a musical note, so you will remember what stridulation means. It's like a lot of sound. I'm going to continue adding a little bit of darker. I see like in the middle, it becomes a little bit, it's like a line here. So I'm just going to add a little bit more pressure with the same color, and then leave that and add a little bit of pressure on this end. There's a little bit of brown here. So I'm just going to go with a brown color on the edge here. All these like irregular edges here are a little bit brown. Definitely the eyes are brown. And yeah, I think that's where I see most of this color brown. And the rest, I'm gonna add a little bit of more pressure where the head joins. It's a little bit of a ridge here. And I'm just using the exact same color, but adding, varying how much pressure I use. If I press very, very hard, I get a darker color. And if I press very lightly, I get a very light color. I see that this part of the wing here is a little bit darker. I guess that it has a very nice shape, so there's a highlight there, and the ridge of the wing, and all these marks, I am gonna draw them with this color pencil, which by the way needs a little bit of sharpening. And because the wing is underneath, this part here is going to be a little bit darker, because the shadow. And then I'm going to lift the pressure of the color, and then I'm going to go a little bit darker again right at the edge. And that way I have very nice volume. You know, with light and shadow we create volume. There's also some very interesting, yeah, like the veins. I'm gonna draw them with this. I see that they start here and then they come here, and there are other veins here. And drawing with color pencil is cool, because I didn't want to draw them with the graphite, because then they would be all dark. And what I see is this beautiful, beautiful lines of this color. And if you don't have this exact color, you can start with a yellow and then on top add a little bit of red. So those are all these. It looks like totally like a leaf. It totally looks like veins. And I notice that they all go in this direction. And I also noticed there's so many lines here. Maybe I will use a light brown after. And some curve and some meat, and some they get lost in the back. Oh, that is so cool. Then this part here, I want to make sure I also add a little bit of shadow here, and where the wings attach. And then for the wings here, I know they might be a little bit darker here because the light doesn't reach, but they're very, very almost transparent until the very tip. At the tip I can see more veins, and also I can see a little bit of more darkness. But yeah, that's mostly what I see. In the inside of the leaf, I'm gonna add a little bit of blue, and that's a trick. If you want to make a darker yellow, you can use a very light blue. And I'm gonna use that as well for these sides, so I make a darker yellow on the sides, and also a little bit here. I wouldn't use a black because then black doesn't let the yellow color come up. The legs are also this color. I noticed some insects that I've drawn in the past, they have different colors for the legs, but in this case they're pretty much, yeah, they're pretty much that color. Wow, one thing I'm noticing now that I hadn't noticed before is that the tibia, and that's something that I hadn't noticed before, it has like ridges, it has like spines. Wow, that is so cool. I hadn't noticed before. I should have looked closer. And the back legs also have all these spines. That is very cool. And the femur too here. Wow, that's cool. So I'll take photos later so you can see them as I do. One thing I know is that the closer to the body, the darker are gonna get. Also in the joints or articulations, they're gonna get a little bit darker. This is cool. Well, I also have learned that they love eating leaves and flowers. They also like to eat other insects. They can even eat snails. I'm going to use a brown to go a little bit darker where the legs, oops, that's not a brown. Oh, but I like that effect. It's like a red. Oh, I actually like it. I might use that here. That was a happy accident. That's where they have the tympanic organ to hear, which is kind of cool. I never thought about having my ears in my arms, but katydids do. So I'm now going to go and press a little bit harder. And if you have lost your lines because of the color and all the layers of color that we've done, a good trick is to go back with a graphite pencil and you just redraw all the lines that you missed. And then suddenly you get all your lines back. It is so cool. And I cannot forget where the antenna come from. And as I said before, I really I really want to draw the antenna directly with my color pencil. Yeah, so they're very curvy and very orangey and very thin. One, it's almost like hair thin. Very delicate. I need to be very delicate with the specimen. And finally, I'm just going to add a little bit of more darkness and the last touches. And I'm going to also write down the things that we talked about. What do they like to eat? They eat leaves, flowers, they seeds, also snails, other insects, and that's why they are omnivorous. a little bit of everything. And then I'm gonna have so much fun with my title. I think I am when I first learned the name, I kept asking, what did katydid do? This is a bush. Cricket. And I know that they're usually green, and the one we have is this beautiful orange color. And even though they look like grasshoppers, they're just relatives of the grasshoppers. They're not very good at flying either. Even they have these wings, they're not very good at flying. So that's something that also might be a big difference. And and they can be found everywhere in the world. Everywhere in the world except one place. Except for Antarctica, because it's very cold. But other than that, you can find them everywhere. And they're not pests. They don't do anything wrong for farmers, and they're not pests. They're friends. So it's not something that farmers will like to eradicate. They're not pests. So let me put that here. They're no pests. That means that they don't eat all the crop. And I'm sure the antenna moves, so I'm going to add a little bit of lines there. That's our ear on each side of the front legs, and this was so much fun. I hope you had a lot of fun. I'm going to continue adding a little bit more of detail here and there, but I hope you get to see the photos up close and see how friendly and handsome our katydid bush cricket is.